Hey everybody, what is going on? Today we're going to be taking a look at a tier list made by Killua. He's a moderator in the Eternal Evolution community, and I want to take a look at it. I haven't really given it a good look either, so I figured we could look at it together and see what we think about it. Probably learn some things from it. I want to say as a disclaimer at the beginning of this, tier lists can be very useful tools for newer players coming into a game to get a feel for who's good at what, but I also want you to keep in mind this game is very new. There's probably champs that are good at things that haven't been discovered yet. There may be buffs and nerfs coming. There could be new champs coming that change the whole scene. There could be new content coming that could change the whole scene. So still be careful about who you feed. Okay, just because someone is lower on the tier list doesn't necessarily mean you need to just get rid of every copy of them you ever get. So this is a good tool for reference, but I would not swear by it, okay? So we're gonna use this to get a feel for who's great at what things right now in the current state of the game. But I want to make sure that you don't read this tier list and then go and feed a bunch of champs because they don't rank high on a certain thing right now. There's still a lot to be discovered, and when the game globally launches, there's going to be a lot more players doing a lot more testing and trying a lot of different things, and we're going to find out that some of these champs that may not seem like they're good at something right now may end up being really good at something. So that's the disclaimer I want to give you guys before we jump in here and take a look at this. Use it for reference. Do not swear by it and feed champs because of it necessarily, okay? Now let's go ahead and jump into it. And again, shout out to Killua for putting the effort into doing this because this is a pretty sharp looking tier list, to be honest. Now, as you would expect, there are a lot of Triple S champs in the Triple S tier. It seems fitting, right? Actually the only one that's not is Serena, and we talk about Serena. I did a video about champs that you can invest in early in the game without really worrying about wasting your resources on them. And Serena is one that is basically one of the best healers in the game, tied for Masrani, I guess is how you pronounce it. And Masrani is a Triple S champ, which means it's going to be harder to obtain, harder to evolve, harder to push further. But it's a Triple S champ, so it's probably going to compensate for that. Serena, you're going to get from your login calendar. You can get frags from the recharge pack. There's a few ways to get Serena, so you can get her stronger quicker in that regard. But Serena's fantastic. So up here for our tank, our Triple S tank, we've got one, and it's Crete. I am not familiar with Crete. I'm not familiar with a ton of the Triple S champs at the moment because I figure I'm gonna get so few of them. I'm not gonna bother getting super familiar with them just yet. I want to get familiar with the champs I have access to. So we have a lot of digging around to do, and we'll probably do a lot of that together. But anyway, Crete is our only Triple S tank. Luke, who was in a banner yesterday that I pulled on, I went for the other banner with Guan Yu in it. But Luke is apparently a Triple S AoE champ. We've got Emma, Triple S DPS. Bailey Hudson I've heard quite a lot about. I feel like Bailey Hudson is one that he's another one of those that you can invest in him immediately and never regret it. Apparently he's a real fantastic champ. Not super familiar with him yet, but we'll get there. Skewer and Hattie are Triple S summoners. Summoners I think is going to be a fun class to play around with. There's not a ton of them apparently, but I think that's going to be a real fun one to get some experience with. I want to see them in action. And we've got Serena and Masrani as our Triple S healers. And for our crowd control / buffer / debuffer, we have Rez and Aneruda, maybe? I don't know. And then the blue border, you see some of them have glowing blue borders. And down here we've got a legend that explains. I'll try to move. Let me make sure I'm moving the right way here. So you can see the blue border is debuffers. The red borders are damagers, tank heroes, and then the chain bond needs each other to be good. So there's some champs that need each other in the team together to be good. Prism Amulet, prototype buff for Vanguard heroes to be tanky in battle. Heroes with this icon need Prism Amulet to be tanky. If not, they'll die fast. And then X30 means exclusive weapon. Needs exclusive weapon plus 30 to be good. So those are some notes we can keep in mind here. I only see one example of this though. I guess they both need each other to be really good, but if you have them together, then they are really good. So then we go down to our S rank on everything. And let's see, Oisa is the tank you're gonna get right at the beginning of the game. it's cool to know that she's S tier. She has been pretty solid. I put her in the front line by herself right now, and she's been doing fine. Zeta, who I was under the impression was a triple S ranking tank too, not just triple S quality, but I would have expected Zeta to go triple S on the tank tier list too. But I guess if maybe Creed outshines Zeta real hard. Oak is another one that's fantastic. We talk about Oak and Hercules in that video that I carded to a little while ago. And Oak is fantastic. Hercules is fantastic. I guess they're all on the same tier roughly. I kind of feel like Oak and Hercules outshine Boar a little bit. But again. Yeah, and then the blue borders are buffers and debuffers. So my speculation was that Hercules is probably better for immediate progression. Oak is probably still solid for progression, but better long term. We'll know if that's true eventually, I reckon, but that's kind of my speculation just at first glance. For our AoE champs for the S tier, we've got Moriami and Priger, maybe? And they need each other to be good. 2 triple S heroes. It's going to be a tough combo to get, but getting champs in this game is not quite as hard. It's not like needing to pull 2 legendaries in raid. I think they're going to be a little bit more obtainable here. And we'll talk about that in another video when we go over the recruitment system in the game, but that'll be fun. Omar is where I expected. Omar's pretty fantastic, honestly. And Omar is part of one of those trains of what's it called? The recruitment trial or something like that, where you can get the hero and then you do things with them to unlock things to make them better, like gear specific to them and resources to level them up and power them up and stuff. So Omar's pretty great, and you can get him right out of the gate. Falve, maybe? Falve. And Jean, our other S tier AoE champs. Not familiar with them just yet. As far as DPS, we've got Natalis, who's a triple S champ, and then Taylor, who we know by now is, I think, one of the better boss PvE champs in the game. This is also general, like their widespread use, I guess. If we split it up into PvP or PvE, maybe this tier list would look a lot different, but this is kind of general use. Taylor, I think, is real good for bosses. I'm working on getting my Taylor built up and strong currently, so we can do a good video with him. But he's been pretty crazy so far. And then Azina, I think there's a banner going on for Azina right now. Sorietta is another one, kind of like Omar in that recruitment trial thing. And then Bot Mark II, who again we know is a pretty solid DPS champ as well. Rakana and Randall for assassins. I think they're pretty much the standouts aside from Bailey Hudson. This makes a lot of sense here, honestly. I feel like with Bailey Hudson being as good as he is, he has to be a tier above these two, but I think these two are still very solid. I think I probably could have justified putting them in the you can invest in these champs early and not regret it video, but I didn't want to have 20 champs in that video right out of the gate, so we'll get around to talking about them as well. But summoners, Shinwei, Kalaza, and Muka. I have Kalaza, actually. Maybe I need to focus Kalaza a little bit harder. I had started to focus Kalaza, and then I pulled some other champs that made me want to revamp my squad, and I've got him in the Inherit lineup now, so he's still got levels, so maybe I'll throw some gear on him and get him in the mix and see what we think about him, because I am very curious about the summoner class in general. And then no S tier healers or buffers, which is interesting. And then crowd control, buffer and debuffer, we've got Hypnos. I don't know how to say it. Not familiar with that champ at all yet. Moving down the line for our tanks. This is interesting. I guess tank slash, and then there's a lot of qualifiers here. Crowd control, debuffer, and damager. I almost wonder if I would do that differently. I kind of feel like, I guess it's hard to quantify when some of these champs do so many different things. I feel like Artas kind of more deserves to be in the DPS conversation though. Because Artas, I'm using Artas. Artas is the pre-registration champ I keep talking about. And he's a Vanguard, so he's a defense scaling damage dealer. And he's got pretty good damage output. I don't know. I'll know as I get more experience in the game, but I feel like I'm getting more out of him than A tier quality. Same with Guan Yu. I think these two, and I don't even have a prism amulet for him yet. and they're doing really well for me. Obviously, I'm still pretty early in the game, so we'll see how that continues to scale. But I have limited experience, I guess. So I'll hold off before. Maybe we'll kind of do our own tier list over time as we get more familiar with everyone. And then Wheat. I don't know how to say it. Not familiar with that champ. These guys, though, A tier is still good too. I guess that makes sense. A tier is a solid tier. I'm really enjoying these two. They're the two that I'm putting most of my resources in right now, and they're popping off, dude. I really like these guys. For damage dealers, AoE, we've got Paluno and Murphyro. Paluno I've heard about. I've heard Paluno's really good. The other one I'm not super familiar with. Xander for just straight up DPS. No A tier assassins or summoners, which I find interesting. And then for healers and buffers, we've got Lyran. And I've used this one a little bit and thought he was pretty solid. I think he's probably much better in the early game, which may be why he's A tier. Maybe he starts to fall off a little bit where Serena would not. So that's why Serena's so far above him. But he's solid. I think you can invest in him if you get him. And I think you do get him. Is he the other recruitment trial champ? He might be. So if you get him early, use him. It's nice to have the healer on the team until you get Serena from your login, or if you get lucky and pull her sooner. But he's solid enough. I think A tier's fair. I think A tier's fair for him. And then for our B tier for tanks, we've got Langell, who I like the look of a lot. Haven't done a ton with him because I've been so fortunate. One, you get Oisa straight out of the gate. Oisa, and then I have Artas and Guan Yu. So my front line, I put her in the front, and then I've been putting Artas and Guan Yu in the second line. And then my back row has been Taylor and Sorietta. And that's kind of what I've been rocking right now. I'm considering, the problem is I've been able to progress Sorietta so far, but same with Omar. So I'm in a weird spot because I don't want to get rid of Sorietta for Omar, but I don't want to get rid of Taylor for Omar either, and I definitely don't want to get rid of these two or Oisa. So we might be at a point where we start thinking about like which content we're using them for and try some different teams. But my Omar's kind of beefy right now too. And then Ornn and Karma or B tier for AoE. Karma's pretty solid. I used him a little bit when I was brand new as well, and had no complaints about him. Again, I just feel like I have better options now. So yeah, a lot of this makes sense. I had not looked at this prior, but based on, again, my limited experience in the few days I've been playing, it all kind of seems to line up. I feel like a lot of these champs fall roughly where I would have expected. I think I would have expected more out of Artas and Guan Yu here because I've gotten so much out of them, but I've also invested very heavily in them, and I'm still pretty early in the game. So maybe as I progress, that feeling will change. Other than that, I think it all makes sense. Maybe based on what I know and my experience, there's an argument to justify Taylor as being triple S, but I don't know how much better than Taylor Emma is. So if she stands out quite a bit from him, then it makes sense that she needs to be a rank higher. But I almost feel like Taylor stands out. I think Taylor's better than Sorietta, for example. I think Taylor, and maybe that's why he's above here, but it seems like a very solid point of reference. And then all these guys down here are labeled as fodder. And I think that is probably a safe bet because most of these champs, I think, come in rare form. You can pull them, and you can pull elite versions of them, like where their card's already purple. I've done that a few times, but basically I think all the blue rarity champs and below are just going to be food. So that's a safe bet. But everyone up here, again, I would be careful because it's someone like Karma or Langell. 1 might be a lot better than we think right now. 2 could be really good for some new content that's going to drop. 3 could catch a buff. There's just a lot of things that can change. So again, proceed with caution if you decide you're going to feed champs based on this, other than the fodder champs. But I think it's an excellent point of reference. And again, in my limited experience so far, it all falls roughly where I would have expected, based on what I know. I don't know a lot about the champs, so we'll give it a couple weeks. We'll learn the champs, and maybe we'll revisit. Maybe we'll make one of our own. But yeah, this was interesting to see. It lets you know for sure like who to keep an eye out for. Now I know that if I pull I luck up and pull a creep, then I know my tank situation is sorted. You know what I mean? So that's great. I'll probably be referencing this quite a bit as I do summons and stuff. So I'll put a link to it below if you want to check it out. It's also in their official Discord in the guides channel. But if you want to check it out, I'll put a link to it below as well if you want to use it for reference for yourself. And that's it. I'm gonna get out of here. I appreciate y'all. Hope you have a good one. See you later.